Hi everyone, welcome back to TechCravers. Today we're diving into a full modding or hacking tutorial for the new Nintendo 3DS XL, or technically the new Nintendo 3DS LL, because this is a Japanese console. In this video I'll show you how to install custom firmware or CFW and then take things one step further by completely changing the system region, turning a Japanese console into a fully usable US or EU system. Now there are actually a few different ways to mod a new Nintendo 3DS. Some methods are quicker, but they can be very inconsistent. Sometimes they work instantly, and sometimes they're almost impossible to get working at all. And for this tutorial we're going to go with the slightly more involved method. But the upside is that it has a near 100% success rate, which makes it far more reliable in the long run. I'll be doing the mod using my PC, but if you don't have access to one, you can also use my older video showing you how to do the same process using an Android phone or tablet. And after we're done installing custom firmware, we'll move on to a full region change from Japan to US or EU. So if your console is already modded and you only care about switching regions, you can skip straight to that part using the timestamps below. Alright, let's get started. Alright, let's power on this Japanese console for the very first time. And if you have no idea how to get through the initial setup menus, don't worry, just follow my button presses on screen. I can't read Japanese either, so this is basically how we're going to handle it. One important tip before we continue, make sure you have the charger plugged in. You really don't want your system to run out of battery in the middle of the setup process. Make sure that the 3D slider on the right side of the top screen is pushed all the way up, and once that is done, tap the gray button on the bottom screen. Tap the gray button in the lower right corner of the bottom screen, and after that press the button in the center. This will enable the 3D effect on the top screen, and you obviously won't be able to see the 3D effect in this video, but just follow along. Tap the gray button on the right, then press OK. Tap the right button again, and after that select the only button that appears on the screen. This will take you to the section where you name your user, set the date, choose the region, etc., which will be Japan, and go through the rest of the initial setup. At this stage, none of these choices really matters, and you can change them later, so just click your way through the process one step at a time. Once you're finished, tap the gray button to continue. Tap the button that appears on screen and then tap the next one. After that, press the button in the lower right corner. Then tap the top button to move on to the Wi-Fi setup section. Click through all of the dialog bubbles and then press the large button. Once again, skip through all the dialog. When you reach the screen with multiple options, select the long button underneath the images. This lets you manually search for your Wi-Fi network at home and enter the password. After you're connected to the internet, press the lower left button to go back one step. From here, just follow my button presses on screen. You'll go through a quick update check, and after that you'll finally be taken to the 3DS home menu. Once you're on the home menu, go ahead and open System Settings. It's the icon that looks like a wrench. Here we can tell that this is a Japanese console by the J at the end of the firmware version. Not that it wasn't already obvious. In front of the version number you'll see VER, which tells us that this console is still running stock original firmware. If it said SYS instead, that would mean custom firmware was already installed. And with that out of the way, the first thing we're going to do is to update the system to the latest software. So go ahead and tap the large button in the lower right corner with the orange icon. Navigate as far to the right as you can and then tap the top button, press OK, and after that select the button on the right. This will start the update process. This part will take a little while, so let it finish. And once it's done, press OK, and after that you can go back into System Settings to double check that the console is now on version 11.17. That's the firmware version we want before moving on to the next step. Next, power off your console and remove the microSD card from your console and mount it into your PC. Before we continue, there's one important thing I want to mention. If you plan on upgrading to a larger microSD card than the one that came with the console, it's a good idea to insert the card into your 3DS at least once and boot the system. The card also needs to be formatted in FAT32 in order to work properly. You can use a tool called FAT32 Format to do this, and I'll leave a link to it in the video description. Now, on your computer, click the link in the video description called Download MZ9, and once you're on that page, download the latest version and it should come as a zip file. Next, click on the second link in the description called Download Python. From there, click the yellow button that says Download Python Install Manager. Now locate the files you just downloaded and start by installing Python. During the installation, you'll be prompted to type Y and press Enter. Just follow along and let it finish. Once that's done, mount your microSD card in your computer if you haven't done it already, and at this point the only thing that should be on the card is a folder called Nintendo 3DS. This folder is created automatically the very first time you insert the card into a powered on Nintendo 3DS console. Next, open the MZ9 zip file and extract or simply drag all of the files directly to the root of your SD card. Once done, double-click mz9-windows.bat if you're on Windows or mz9-macOS.command if you're on a Mac. Python, which you installed, will open up and you'll be presented with a few different options. Based on which 3DS or 2DS model you're using, select the corresponding number and press Enter. In my case, I'm using a new Nintendo 3DS running on firmware 11.17, so I type 2 and then press Enter. Just make sure that you choose the option that matches your console. On the next screen, type 1 and press Enter to begin creating the MZ9 ID 1. After reviewing the disclaimer, type 1 once again and press Enter to accept it. If everything worked correctly, you should see a message created hacked ID 1, and when you see that, press Enter to close the MZ9 script. Finally, remove the SD card from your computer, reinsert it into your console and power the system back on. Open MeMaker on your console, and once it loads, exit MeMaker again and go back into your system settings. From there, select Data Management, that's the button in the lower left corner. Next, choose Nintendo 3DS, then tap the top option for software, and finally select the button on the right. After that, power off your console again by pressing the power button and tapping power off on the bottom screen, and once the system is fully shut down, remove the SD card and insert it back into your computer. Once again, double-click mz9windows.bat, type the number that matches your console model and firmware version, and then press Enter. This time you should see ready next to current MZ9 state. If for some reason it says not ready, type 2 and follow the on-screen instructions to fix it. But if it says ready, we can move on to the next part, triggering MZ9 to launch Safe B9S installer, which is the custom firmware installer. Now, from here on, you need to follow the next steps exactly. Double check everything you're doing because small mistakes here can cause errors. Reinsert the SD card into your console, then power the console on and make sure that System Settings is selected on the home screen. If System Settings isn't selected, use the D-pad to highlight the System Settings icon, then power off your console and turn it back on again, with System Settings still selected. Press A to launch System Settings. From there, tap on Data Management, then Nintendo 3DS, and then select the second button from the top, Extra Data. Now this part is very important. Do not press any buttons and do not touch the screen. With the console still powered on and without pressing anything, carefully remove the SD card from your system. The menu will refresh and tell you that no SD card is inserted, and that's exactly what we want to see. Insert the SD card into your computer. Run the MZ9 script once again by double-clicking mz9windows.bat. Type the number that corresponds to your console model and firmware and then press Enter. This time in the MZ9 window, type 3 and press Enter to inject MZ9. If everything worked correctly, you should see the message MZ9 successfully injected. Press Enter to close the MZ9 script. Now reinsert the SD card back into your console, and this part is very important. Do this without pressing any buttons and without touching the screen. If the exploit was successful, the system will automatically boot into Safe B9S installer. And when prompted, enter the button combination shown on the top screen to install Boot 9 Strap. In some cases, like mine, the top screen may be completely blank. But if you see crypto status all checks passed on the bottom screen, you need to enter the combo blindly. So press the following buttons in this exact order: D-pad left, D-pad down, D-pad right, D-pad up, and then A. If everything was successful, all 7 steps on the bottom screen will complete and turn green. And once they do, press A to reboot your console. If everything went correctly, your console should now boot into the Luma 3DS configurations menu. These settings controls how the Luma 3DS custom firmware behaves. Many of them can be useful later on for customization or debugging, but for the purpose of this guide, leave everything exactly as it is. Don't check or uncheck any options. Simply press start to save the settings and reboot the console. Once the console boots up, go back into system settings to confirm that custom firmware is now installed. You can tell by looking at the firmware version. It should now say SYS in front of it, exactly like I mentioned earlier in the video. But we're not done yet. Now we need to remove the MZ9 injection to prevent problems later on, and this part is extremely important. So do not skip this section. If you do, apps may crash unexpectedly and you'll run into errors in the next steps. So first, power off the console, remove the SD card and insert it into your computer. Run the MZ9 script one more time by double-clicking mz9 windows.bat, type the number that matches your console model and firmware version, and then press enter. At this point, the current MZ9 state should now show injected. Type 4 and press enter to remove the trigger file. You should see the message removed trigger file in green. Next, type 5 and press enter to completely remove MZ9. If everything worked correctly, you'll see successfully removed MZ9. And once you see that message, press enter to close the MZ9 script. At this point, your console will boot into Luma 3DS by default, but we're not completely finished here yet. Next, we're going to add 2 files that help us install a bunch of really useful applications. This includes FBI, which lets you install CIA formatted apps and ROMs, and Homebrew Launcher Loader, which is used to run Homebrew in the 3DSX format. To do that, head over to the link in the video description called Finalize Setup. From there, download both files by clicking the links x_finalize_helper.firm and finalize.romfs. Now locate the 2 files you just downloaded and first copy finalize.romfs directly to the root of your SD card. Next, open the Luma folder on your SD card, and inside that folder create a new folder called Payloads, if it doesn't already exist. Then copy x_finalize_helper.firm into the Payloads folder. Once that's done, safely remove the SD card from your computer and reinsert it into your console. Now press and hold X, and while holding X, power on your console. This will launch the Finalizing Setup helper. After a few seconds, the system should automatically boot into God Mode 9. From this point forward, you can access God Mode 9 by holding Start while powering on your console. Holding X on boot will no longer do anything after this step. If you're prompted to select a language, use the D-pad and press A to choose English. If you're asked to create essential files backup or to fix RTC date and time, go ahead and do that as well. And once you see Root and a list of drives, press Home to open the action menu. Select Scripts, make sure it's Scripts and not Lua scripts, and select Finalize. Follow the on-screen prompts in the script, answering any questions you're asked, and when prompted, enter the button combination shown on the bottom screen to continue. When the script finishes and you see the setup complete, press A to power off your console. When you boot up the console again, you'll notice a bunch of new icons and packages on the home screen. These are the different Homebrew apps and tools that the script just installed for us. And with that, we're actually done. Your Japanese console is now fully modded, running custom firmware and ready to use, so nice job. At this point, you can use the system however you like, play games without worrying about region locks, use sheet databases to make difficult games a bit easier, or install your own backups, especially now that Nintendo no longer allows purchases through the eShop. What you do with it from here is completely up to you. But now it's time for part 2 of this guide. Next, we're going to replace the Japanese system language with English, and at the same time make the console think it belongs to a different region, for example the US or the EU. That said, I want to give a quick warning before we continue. Only proceed with this next part if you truly need English system menus. Region changing is almost completely unnecessary. Luma 3DS already supports out-of-region games. Once you region change your console, you will not be able to uninstall custom firmware without permanently bricking your system. If you ever plan to remove custom firmware in the future, you must restore the NAND backup that was created before doing this region change. Skipping that step or doing it incorrectly will result in a dead console, so make sure you understand this before continuing. When you're ready, head to the link in the video description called 2DS 3DS region change and let's move on. From here we have all the links we need, so just download each file in this order. First, download the latest release of God Mode 9, the godmode9.zip file. Next, download the latest release of FBI using the direct download link. After that, download the latest release of Fake Tick. Make sure you grab the 3DSX file. Then download ctrtransfer.gm9, and for this one, right-click on the link and choose Save Link As. And finally, download the 11.15.0 CTR transfer image that matches your console model and the region you want to switch to. For example, if you got a new 3DS and you want to swap to the US region, you download New 3DS or 2DS USA. In my case, I'm using a new 3DS and I want to convert it to a European system, so I'm downloading the top option for EU. And just like it says on the page, you need to use a torrent client to download the CTR transfer images. Something like Qubit Torrent or Deluge will work just fine. Once you have downloaded all the files from the previous step, we can move on. Remove the microSD card from your console and mount it in your computer. First, create a folder called 3DS on the root of your SD card, if it doesn't already exist. Next, open the godmode9.zip file and copy godmode9.firm to the payloads folder inside the Luma folder on your SD card. Then copy the GM9 folder from the zip file directly to the root of your SD card. Inside the GM9 folder, create a folder called in, again only if it doesn't already exist. Now copy the 11.15.0 CTR transfer image, both the bin file and the bin.sha file, into the gm9-in folder. It will take a bit longer to transfer these files as they are a bit bigger than the other files. After that, copy ctrtransfer.gm9 into the gm9-scripts folder. Next, copy the fbi.3dsx into the 3ds folder, and copy faketick.3dsx into the 3ds folder as well. Once everything is in place, safely eject the SD card and reinsert it back into your console. Now press and hold start, and while holding start, power on your console. This will launch God Mode 9. If you're prompted to create essential files backup, press A to do so, and once it's finished, press A again to continue. If you're prompted to fix the RTC date and time, press A to set the correct date and time, and then press A to continue. Once you're fully in God Mode 9, press Home to bring up the action menu. From the action menu, select Scripts and then choose CTR Transfer. After that, select the CTR transfer image that you downloaded earlier. The script will now calculate the hash of the image to make sure it's valid, and once all checks are completed, press A to continue. Next, press A to unlock SysNAND writing level 2 and then enter the button combination shown on the screen to confirm. The region change process will now begin, and this part takes a bit of time, so just leave the console alone and come back in about 5 minutes or so. When the transfer process is finished, press A to continue, and if you're prompted to relock write permissions, press A to do so. Finally, press start to reboot your console. Alright, we're very close to the end now, I promise. As you can see, once the console boots up, everything is now in English. However, if you open system settings, you'll notice that the region change process actually downgraded the firmware. So just like you would on a normal console, go to Other Settings, scroll all the way to the right, and perform a system update to bring the system back to version 11.17. This is completely safe now that we have Boot 9 Strap and Luma 3DS installed. If you're missing the Homebrew apps we installed earlier, don't worry, here's how to get them back. Start by launching the Download Play application. Wait until you see both the Nintendo 3DS and Nintendo DS buttons on the screen. Now press the left shoulder button, D-pad down and select at the same time to open the Rosalina menu. From here select Miscellaneous Options. Then choose Switch the hb.title to the current app. Press B to continue, press B again to return to the Rosalina main menu and press B one more time to exit the Rosalina menu completely. Press Home to suspend download and play, then tap Close on the bottom screen to fully close the application and relaunch Download Play. If everything was done correctly, the system will load back into Homebrew Launcher instead. Now open FBI from the list of installed applications and when prompted, select SD. Scroll down and open the GM9 folder. From there select Out. Then choose CTR Transfer _ Tickets. Scroll down and select eShop. Then choose Current Directory at the top. Now select Install and delete all tickets. And press A to confirm. Once that's finished, press Home to exit FBI. Next, reopen the Homebrew Launcher either from the Homebrew Launcher icon on the home menu if you have it, or by repeating the same download play method we just used earlier. From the Homebrew list, launch FakeTick. Once FakeTick has finished processing, press Start to exit. You'll be taken back to the Homebrew Launcher. From here, press on Home to close the Homebrew Launcher, and once you're back on the home menu, all of your apps and packages should be in place again, ready to be opened and used just like before. And just like that, we're done. We started with a completely stock Japanese new Nintendo 3DS XL, installed custom firmware using a safe and reliable method, verified everything was working correctly, and then went one step further by changing the system region from Japanese to EU, giving us full English menus and complete freedom over the console. At this point your system is fully unlocked, region free and ready to be used exactly the way you want. If this guide helped you out, make sure to leave a like, it really helps the channel. And if you want more modding tutorials, tech deep dives and console hacks like this, consider subscribing so you don't miss the next one. Thanks a lot for watching and I'll see you in the next TechCravers video.